Cyberattacks is quite a constant thing that actually happening all around the world. Since the annexation of Crimea, Ukraine faced multiple different cyberattacks. However, after the large-scale invasion of Russian forces to Ukraine, the number of cyberattacks against Ukraine and Ukrainian forces rose significantly. Targets. So the Russia tries to undermine communication systems, intimidate journalists, or amplify disinformation for a wide audience.
Hello and welcome to Ukrainian Flames, a special project by Ukraine Media Center and Euroatlantic Course NGO. My name is Osadchuk and today we'll talk about cybersecurity amid Russia full-scale invasion. If you want to know more, please subscribe to our channel to stay tuned. Several major cyberattacks around the world have been traced to Russia intelligence-linked hackers in recent years. There has been a sustained cyber conflict over Ukraine, which could still escalate. Numerous experts and officials warn that major cyberattacks on the West could materialize. As tensions rose between Ukraine and Russia, ultimately escalating to warfare, the West expects Russia to target Western critical infrastructure, especially in relation to ongoing sanctions against Moscow. Russia has launched its war on Ukraine on 24th of February, but Russian cyberattacks against Ukraine have persisted ever since Russia's illegal annexation of Crimea in 2014, intensifying just before the 2022 invasion. Over this period, Ukraine's public, energy, media, financial, business and non-profit sectors have suffered the most. Since 24th of February, limited Russian cyberattacks have undermined the distribution of medicines, food and relief supplies. Their impact has ranged from preventing access to basic services to data theft and disinformation, including deep fake technologies. Over 400,000 people have volunteered to help Ukrainian government using digital means to disrupt Russian government and military targets. Russia indeed can weaponize its cyber capabilities and can hit the West in a way which could have a similar impact to that of the Colonia pipeline attack of 2021. You don't have to move tanks or armors. You just have to use your keyboard to make a cyber blow. We've talked about these issues with Osadchuk, research assistant at Atlantic Council.
Cyberattacks is quite a constant thing that actually happening all around the world. And among its victims are usually private companies, governments, and private citizens. However, after the large-scale invasion of Russian forces to Ukraine, the number of cyberattacks against Ukraine and Ukrainian forces rose significantly, whereas in other places stayed relatively the same, with a few notable exceptions that I will note out later. Some attacks were clearly connected to the war that Russia continued since 2014 and with this large-scale invasion. So, for instance, there was large-scale denial of service attack or DDoS attack against Lithuania that Russian hacker group Killnet took responsibility for. The hacking group claimed that they actually shut down multiple websites so that users couldn't actually get an access to those websites, and it was their retaliation for the sanctions that Lithuanian government imposed against the transit of goods from Russian territories to Kaliningrad, another Russian territory. So in this specific attack, state and private companies were hit, but this, as I said, the scale of this attack was highly exaggerated by the hackers, who said that they took down thousands of websites, but actually in reality it took much less than that. Another and probably the most well-known cyber attack that happened during the war was actually that actually happened an hour prior to the specific invasion, is the attack on the Viasat satellite company. So the hack was attributed to Russians as well, and they hit not only satellite comms in Ukraine that were like pretty critical in a few hours of invasion, but also the spillover effect of the specific hack actually hit also foreign users, such as more than 5,000 wind turbines that belong to German energy company were unreachable. So they were like still working, but if some reboot was needed, it could only be done through manual reset and not remotely. And such hacking attempts also intensified against Ukraine and its allies. So in Ukraine, cyber attacks also focused on media. There were at least two kind of ticker attacks that tried to broadcast some specific messages on the Ukrainian national TV, like proposed call to surrender from supposedly Zelensky, which was actually never the case, or the fake message that Zelensky was in the hospital, which is also was a blatant lie and disinformation. Additionally, Russians targeted Ukr, so it's one of the largest Ukrainian telecommunication providers. While the attack was mostly mitigated within in a matter of hours, the company traffic within its infrastructure fell significantly, and most users actually faced the consequences of this attack, but the next day everything was restored to its full capacity.
Organizations and governments around the world have not been indifferent to the hybrid risks thus posed. EU, US and NATO-led initiatives have been carried out with the aim of neutralizing cyber threats and protecting essential infrastructure. Roman Osadchuk also explained with whom Ukraine cooperated in the sphere on cybersecurity.
Since the annexation of Crimea, Ukraine faced multiple different cyber attacks. Among the largest ones is the compromise of Central Election Committee, two power grids attacks, and NotPetya virus. So since then, Ukraine cooperated with European Union and the United States on learning the vulnerabilities used in those attacks and built a more robust defense of Ukrainian critical infrastructure. And at the beginning of 2022, Ukraine faced a few more cyber attacks, specifically those aimed at the banks and governmental websites. So after this, US Cyber Command and EU Rapid Response Team were dispatched to enhance Ukrainian cybersecurity, and it was actually happening a few weeks prior to the Russian invasion. Moreover, not only the governmental bodies actually work with Ukraine to help strengthen the cybersecurity capabilities, but also private companies as well. So the Google, Amazon, and Microsoft partnered with the Ukrainian government to mitigate cyber attacks or to notify or exchange information about different types of malware, wipers, and some other malign software used in those attacks. About the objectives and the usual targets. So the Russia tries to undermine communication systems, intimidate journalists, or amplify disinformation for a wide audience. So on temporarily occupied territories, Russia tries to control the access to the internet. So they actually sanctions or capture different internet service providers. And also, they disseminate phishing attacks to receive an access to personal accounts of military personnel or the government employees. So far, Russia had limited success in cyber attacks against critical infrastructure after the invasion, due to the swift response of Ukrainian governmental bodies like Amateur Emergency Response Team of Ukraine, or USCERT, Ministry of Digital Transformation, and multiple private organizations that work together to mitigate the cyber attacks and their effects for the Ukraine and Ukrainians. Also, in response to those attacks from Russian forces and hackers, Ukraine created an IT army, an initiative to coordinate the efforts of the hacktivists. So the initiative published a list of entities, including banks, propagandistic media, railway systems, power grids, to run denial of service attacks against the enemy cyber infrastructure. Simultaneously, independent hacker initiatives like the Anonymous, many of them are located in different locations, not specifically in Ukraine, run their own attacks against Russian resources. Activists from all over the world exposed Russian government, their financial data, including emails, information on banking activities, energy production, propaganda campaigns, etc. And among victims of those hacks were Russian propagandistic TV channels, central bank, video hosting, YouTube, banks, and Rosatom. So far, Ukrainian cyber infrastructure is actually under the attack, but it's being protected by the coordinated effort with our allies, and also because of the help of our colleagues from abroad, governmental and private ones as well.
You've been watching the special project by Ukraine Media Center and Euroatlantic Course dedicated to Russia-Ukraine war, Ukraine in Flames. In description, you'll find information how personally you can help Ukraine against Russian aggression. If you find our job useful, please like and share this video. Everything is gonna be Ukraine.